Don't forget to like the video, share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe to stay updated with our latest videos. It turns out that he didn't get heroin, instead, he got fentanyl, which killed him, and Rick Harisson finally speaks out about Adam Harrison's death, and it's a bad thing that the reality TV world has been rocked by tragedy recently since the untimely death of Adam Harisson, Rick Harrisson's son and the founder of Pawn Stars. For weeks, Harisson kept quiet, which led to rumors on social media and in entertainment news outlets. It's finally been 2 years since Rick Harrisson's 39-year-old son Adam died. He finally talked about it in an emotional interview with a major news outlet that has since gone viral, shocking fans with his openness about their troubled relationship and Adam's death. Harisson talked about his son's long battle with an addiction that ended in death in January. Harisson, a normally tough businessman known for his sharp negotiating skills and encyclopedic knowledge of historical events, showed a vulnerable side that is rarely seen on TV as he talked about the painful reality of losing a child to the opioid epidemic that is still destroying families. Adam had a hard time for years all over America. Harrison's voice was filled with emotion as he said, "As a father, you want to fix everything for your child, but addiction isn't something you can just negotiate away or spend money on to go away. We tried everything, the best rehab facilities, interventions, and therapy, but eventually, this disease was stronger than all of our efforts put together." Adam Harisson, unlike his brothers Corey and Jake, who have been on the History Channel show since Pawn Stars debuted in 2009, stayed out of the spotlight. This privacy led to confusion among the show's fans, and many didn't know he existed until the news of his death spread. Rick addressed this directly in the interview, saying that Adam's absence from the show was partly due to his ongoing health problems. That's because Adam was busy with his own problems behind the scenes. That's why he wasn't on the show. Harisson said some days were better than others. He'd have sober stretches that made us think he might have turned the corner, but then he'd slip up again. A lot of families have been through the terrible circle of addiction. The family was initially quiet when the news of Adam's death came out in January. They only released a short statement confirming his death without giving any further details, asking for privacy during their time of grief. This lack of information quickly led to a flood of rumors and speculation online, which Rick admitted was draining on the family as they grieved. "We wanted to process our loss privately before saying anything publicly," Harisson said, "but I've realized that staying silent lets others control the narrative, and Adam deserves better than that. He wasn't just his addiction. He was a father, son, brother, and friend who had so many outstanding qualities that were often overshadowed by his disease." The host of Pawn Stars then talked about Adam's sharp sense of humor, creativity, and times when he worked at the famous gold and silver pawn shop away from the cameras. These glimpses into Adam's life showed a complicated person who struggled with his family's sudden fame and his own personal demons at the same time. Harisson said, "When the show took off, it changed our lives overnight. Corey adapted to it and even thrived in that environment. Adam was different, he was more private and more sensitive to criticism. I sometimes wonder if the stress of our family becoming famous made his problems worse." Harrison's willingness to talk about the realities of addiction is a big deal in celebrity culture, where personal tragedies are often cleaned up or kept secret. By being open about Adam's cause of death, the reality star joins a growing group of public figures who are trying to make addiction and mental health problems less shameful by talking about their own painful experiences. Harisson said that the shame that surrounds addiction is the worst thing about it. Shame keeps people suffering in silence and keeps families pretending everything is fine when things are falling apart. If telling Adam's story helps just one person get help or one family feel less alone in their struggle, then I will have broken my silence. When Harisson talked about his regrets about his relationship with Adam, the interview became even more somber. In a particularly moving moment, he admitted that building his business and then keeping up his TV career sometimes meant he couldn't be there for his son during tough times. There is a price to pay for success that isn't written on any pawn shop tag. Harisson talked about the family business that made him famous and said, "I was building a legacy working 16-hour days at the shop, then managing the demands of the show. There were times Adam needed me, and I was physically there but mentally focused on business. Those are moments I can't get back, and that's something I have to live with now. Harisson also said that he and Adam had been apart at times. The repetitive nature of addiction and recovery makes things more difficult. These admissions explain why Adam isn't involved with the Harisson family business, and they also show how complicated family relationships can be when someone in the family is addicted to drugs. Anyone who has loved someone who is addicted to drugs knows that sometimes you have to set limits for your own health. Harisson said that there were times when we couldn't talk because things had gotten too bad. He said that distance is part of what makes grief so hard. You're not just grieving the person you lost, you're also grieving the reconciliation you'll never get to have, the conversations that will remain unfinished. While the conversation spent a lot of time talking about Adam's painful problems. Harisson also talked about better memories of his son, like how much Adam loved his own kids and how creative he was. These lighter moments gave a fuller picture of a man who was more than his drug problems. Harisson said that Adam was a great dad when he was healthy. He was so patient and present with his kids in a way that taught me a lot about what's important in life. When he was healthy, Adam had this contagious joy that could light up a room. That's the Adam I want people to know existed along with the struggles. The Pawn Stars patriarch also talked about how the family is dealing with their loss and said that they have set up a private foundation in Adam's name to help people who want to get better but don't have the money to pay for care. Even though this project hasn't been made public yet, it has already helped a number of people get access to recovery services. Adam always wanted to help people who were going through the same things he was. Harisson said that even when he was going through the worst, he would reach out to people who were having a hard time and try to help them. This foundation continues that spirit of kindness that was so important to who he was as a person. Harisson Bigos's son, Corey Harisson, who has a big role on Pawn Stars, wasn't in the interview, but Rick said that Harisson was emotionally touched by the death of his brother. Corey has taken a break from filming to deal with his sadness and help Adam's children through this tough time. Adam and Corey had a rough patch, as many brothers do, but they loved each other no matter what. Harisson said that Corey's main goal right now is to be there for Adam's kids and make sure they know how much their dad was loved and that they have family who will be there for them no matter what. Family friend and Pawn Stars co-star Austin Chumley Russell is said to have been there for the Harisson family during their time of grief. Harisson said that Chumley, who has had his own public problems in the past, has shown a lot of understanding during this tough time. As far as Chum knew, Adam was having a hard time, and there was no judgment, just support. Harisson said that was true of the whole Pawn Stars family. Being through something like these events makes you realize who your real friends are, he said. We've been lucky to have people who have shown up for us in meaningful ways. The chat also talked about how the family's faith has helped them deal with their grief after such a terrible loss. Harisson, who doesn't talk about his religious beliefs in public very often, said that going back to the spiritual roots his late father, Richard Oldman Harisson, laid has given him some comfort. My dad was a man of faith, and I found myself reconnecting with those roots during this time, Harisson said. Harisson thought, there is no guidebook for grieving your child, you're not supposed to outlive your kids, finding meaning in that kind of loss requires something bigger than yourself to lean on. This may have been the most revealing part of the interview, as Harisson talked about how fame affected his family. Dynamics is a contrast to the often glitzy portrayal of reality TV stardom. Harisson explained that when you become a public figure, everything changes. Public figures magnify their successes, but they also magnify their failures. For someone who is already dealing with personal demons, having a famous last name can feel like both a blessing and a curse. Adam Harisson sometimes felt like he couldn't be himself because he was always Rick Harisson's son and had to live up to all the standards. Harisson was also candid about the gap between his public persona and his private grief, saying that continuing to film Pawn Stars while dealing with such a deep loss has been one of the hardest things in his career. People who watched episodes filmed after Adam's death would not have known the pain the businessman was going through behind his professional exterior. The cameras roll, and you have to be present. Rick Harisson from Pawn Stars, who knows a lot about history and is always willing to make a deal, said, "You're broken inside, that's the truth of this business. Even if your personal life has stopped, the show must go on." Adam knew this duality better than most because he saw firsthand how the public persona and the private truth don't always match up. Harrison's willingness to talk about how Adam really died comes at a time when the opioid crisis is still killing people from all walks of life and income levels. Harisson is using his fame to show how addiction can affect any family, no matter how much money they have or how well known they are. Harisson adds his words to more and more people are calling for better care. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what your last name is, or whether you're on TV.s, or if you're on TV. Addiction is addiction. Harisson made it clear that everyone has the same chance. If talking about what happened to our family even slightly lowers the shame or inspires someone to get help before it's too late, then our loss has due. The lead singer of Pawn Stars also discussed how Adam's death has altered his perspective on what matters in business and life. Business and in life. He is known for being very smart about figuring out how much historical items are worth. Harisson agreed that tragedy can make us realize what is truly important. I've spent my whole career figuring out what things are worth. He used his well-known knowledge and opinions to say that things like this are what tell you that the most important things in life aren't things at all, but moments, connections, and conversations, especially the tough ones you've been putting off. Harrison's willingness to talk about how Adam really died comes at a time when the opioid crisis is still killing people from all walks of life and income levels. Harisson is using his fame to show how addiction can affect any family, no matter how much money they have or how Harisson emphasizes how well known they are. It doesn't matter how much money you have, what your last name is, or whether you're on TV.s, or if you're on TV. Addiction is addiction. Harisson clarified it that everyone if discussing what happened to our family even slightly lessens the shame or motivates someone to seek help before it's too late, then our loss has been worthwhile. The lead singer of Pawn Stars also discussed how Adam's death has altered his perspective on what matters in business and life. Business and in life. He is known for being very smart about figuring out how much historical items hold value. Harisson agreed that tragedies can help us understand what is truly important. I've dedicated my entire career to understanding what is truly important. I've spent my whole career figuring out what things are worth. He said, referring to his well-known skill at evaluating people, things like this are what remind you that the most valuable things in life aren't things at all, they're moments, connections, and conversations, especially the hard ones you've been putting off having. Harisson ended the emotional talk with a message for other families going through similar struggles with addiction. He shared hard-won advice from his experience. As he said goodbye, he thought about how important it was to find a balance between endless love and realistic hopes for healing. Know that your love can't save them on its own, but love them no matter what. Harisson said, his voice breaking a little, be there when you can, set limits when you need to, and forgive yourself for not being able to fix something that might be. Beyond fixing, most importantly, enjoy the good times when they happen, because they become very valuable when they're the only ones left. As the day drew to a close, Harisson revealed that Adam's family had scattered some of his ashes at a special place they had visited together during one of his sobriety periods. His sobriety periods. It was a rare family vacation where addiction did not define their relationship for a short time. This personal detail, shared with obvious emotion, showed how hard it is to grieve someone whose life had both terrible struggles and genuine moments of connection. Adam had a time when things were going well for about 8 months. Harisson remembered that he and his son went on a trip to the mountains together and had conversations that he will always remember. Saying goodbye in that same spot honored who he was and who he wanted to be. Fans and other celebrities have praised Harisson's honesty in his interview, and addiction experts have praised the reality star for using his platform to show how drug use affects families. When someone with Rick Harrisson's public image is honest about his addiction, which helps break down the shame that keeps many people from getting help. As addiction medicine expert Dr. Marcus Stevens pointed out, Harrisson's willingness to talk about his family's experience made it possible for others to do the same. For the millions of people who have watched the Harisson family on TV for over a decade, that kind of openness is key to fighting this epidemic. Rick's touching talk about Adam's death shows that there is real life behind the fun. The man who made a name for himself by finding out the stories behind historical artifacts has now told the most personal story of all, the story of losing a loved one and the ongoing grief journey. Harisson said as the interview came to a close, Adam's life mattered, his struggles mattered, and making sure others know they're not alone in similar battles matters too. That's the legacy I want to leave for my son, one of honesty, compassion, and the understanding that everyone fighting addiction deserves dignity, even when they can't find it for themselves. As Pawn Stars continues its successful run on TV, viewers will likely see the same familiar Rick Harisson, but behind the smart businessman evaluating rare coins and historical artifacts is now a father. He broke his silence on Adam's death, which changed him and left him with both happy memories and hard facts about his son that most of the show's millions of fans didn't know. Rick Harisson has done more than explain what happened in a family tragedy. He has also used his fame to add to a larger conversation about addiction, grief, and the struggles that go on behind the scenes for a man who made a name for himself figuring out the authenticity and value of historical items. This honest act of openness may turn out to be his most important contribution. The gold and silver pawn shop in Las Vegas is still open and attracts tourists from all over the world. Many tourists now leave their condolences for the Harisson family in a memorial book near the front door. It's a physical reminder that behind the famous storefront that has been on TV, real life continues for the family that has shared their business with the world but kept some of their deepest struggles private until now. Rick says Harisson also told them things they didn't know before about Adam's early years and the start of his drug problems. Adam did a great job. He showed great promise as a young man and had a natural talent for figuring out the value of historical items that matched Rick's. But in his early 20s, his addiction gradually eclipsed this gift. Harisson praised Adam's remarkable eye for detail, stating that he could look at a coin collection and spot the valuable pieces immediately. It was like watching a younger version of myself. We had that connection, that shared interest that I thought would eventually bring him into the business permanently. Rick, who had originally planned to build the pawn empire with both of his sons by his side, was negatively impacted by Harisson's absence from the family business. As Pawn Stars became popular, Corey became a household name along with his father. Adam's problems kept him mostly in the background. There were times when he worked at the shop and was great with customers. Harisson remembered that customers who came in during those times might remember him, even though we kept him away from the cameras. He had a natural charm and knowledge that customers liked, but then the disease would take over again, and he would be gone for weeks or months at a time. Harisson talked about how hard it is to help someone fight addiction when they live in Las Vegas, a city where temptations are everywhere and excess is often praised. He agreed that Vegas is a tough place for someone fighting addiction because it's a city that's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There were times when we talked about Adam moving to start over somewhere else, but eventually he wanted to stay close to his kids and family. The interview also touched on Adam's relationship with his grandfather Richard Harisson, who died in 2018. According to Rick, the old man had a special bond with Adam and often helped keep him stable during hard times. No nonsense, but also very caring when it counted. Harisson said he could connect with Adam in a way that no one else could. After Adam's dad died, Adam lost that anchor. I tried to fill that role, but it was never quite the same. Harisson also talked about reports that were going around online that Adam's problems were caused by family problems. He strongly denied any such stories. People on the internet love drama and crazy ideas. There was a hint of realism in his voice as he said, "The truth is much simpler and much more heartbreaking. It doesn't matter what kind of family fights or reality TV dramas someone is addicted to. The story is about a disease that people can't get rid of no matter how hard they try." The father of the Pawn Stars family said that there had been signs of hope in the months before Adam's death. A new treatment plan had shown promise, and Adam had been staying sober and getting back together with his kids. The family's final loss was even more devastating during this time of hope. When you've been on this emotional roller coaster for years, you learn to be cautiously hopeful during the good times. Harisson said Adam was doing well and was spending time with his kids and talking about plans for the future. I had been down this path before, but this time it felt different. That's part of what makes this loss so painful. We thought we might finally be able to see the end of a very long tunnel. Harisson also said that Adam had been writing a book about his struggles with addiction in order to help other people who are going through the same things. The unfinished manuscript that his family found after he died showed a level of self-awareness and intelligence that even those closest to him were surprised by. Reading his words, I realized how much he understood about my own struggles. Harrison's voice got emotional as he talked about the disease and what it's like to be in its grip. As a family, we're talking about whether some version of this might eventually be shared if it could help others, he said. That would be a decision we'd make very carefully with respect to what Adam would have wanted. The interview quickly talked about how the family's grief was affecting their daily lives. Journey with Harisson talking about the difficulties of grieving while running a public business and TV shows. The gold and silver pawn shop was closed for a few days after Adam's death, which was a first for a business that prides itself on being open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In 35 years, we've only closed the shop maybe 3 times. Harisson stated, but we needed that time to breathe and be together as a family without paying guests or reporters. The History Channel showed great understanding when they had to halt filming. But at some point, you have to go back to work and try to live a normal life, even if nothing seems normal anymore. Harisson also addressed the difficult process of explaining Adam's death to his young children who now face growing up without their father. That's been one of the hardest parts, he admitted. How do you explain to a child that their dad isn't coming back, and why we've tried to be age-appropriately honest to emphasize how much their father loved them and to assure them that his struggles weren't their fault, we making sure they have professional support to process this loss. Throughout the interview, Harisson returned repeatedly to the theme of stigma surrounding addiction and how it complicates both treatment and grieving. He expressed particular frustration with social media comments and tabloid coverage that had characterized Adam's death in sensationalistic or judgmental terms. When someone dies from cancer, there's universal sympathy, Harisson observed. When someone dies from addiction, there's often this undercurrent of judgment, as if they chose this end, as if they didn't fight hard enough. Adam fought this disease with everything.